Thank you. All right. Can you please all make sure you're muted if you're not intending to speak right now? Thank you. All right, back in there. All right, we'll start slowly anyway, and then we'll try to leave as much time for questions as we can towards the end. But welcome, and I'm glad to see there's many people actually joining the call. That's great. There's quite a bit of news coming today around DSC and the community. So the first thing off, no, it's not about open sourcing DSC vNext. So that's out of the window. So that's done. But there's still very interesting things going on, and I've sent a few links. So I want to share a bit like what everyone has been working on and what's going on. First of all, this is the agenda. I'm Gael. If you don't know me, I've been in the DSC community for a while, and I've been contracted out by Microsoft for helping out with the DSC Resource Kit, and I've been working on some of the things you've been seeing, and I've contacted many of the maintainers over the last few months. So we'll start by actually doing what we usually do during this calls, is talking about the resource kit and what's going to be released next week. So wanting to make sure we're not talking about the breaking changes and everything, and then we'll go straight to all the releases you can see on the list. So we've had a DSC community logo, a vote on the DSC resource repository. We are creating a DSC community GitHub organization, and we'll explain that. And we'll talk about the DSC Community Committee that this DSC Community GitHub organization enables. We'll talk about a new RFC coming up for Invoke DSC Resource on PowerShell 7. And we'll talk then a bit about transferring repositories and PS gallery packages. What does that mean? And finally, talking about the DSC community website that we created and that you can contribute to. And so today, I think we've got Michael, which is the DSC PM, everybody knows. I think Katie is around. She said she would join. Hi, Katie, if you're here.
Hi. Here.
Hey, Katie's there. And we've got Johan, Danielle, and I've seen many maintainers and contributors joining the calls too. So hi, everyone, and hi for everyone who's joining the first call. Well, first of all, let's go through the resource kit for 2019. I just meant August 2019 anyway. So the first thing that actually Johan wanted to point out is about X Active Directory. So Johan, if you want to take the lead. If it's not too noisy, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, wait, hang on.
All right, I'll start while you manage your microphone. So X Active Directory has been worked on by many contributors, and I think it reached HQRM now, and it's being renamed Active Directory DSC. And thank you for all the contributors. That's great work. That means we can remove the X and needs to be renamed. Control, go ahead. And we want to try to go to a new version. So like instead of having the 4 fields in the version as NuGet does, we want to go to XYZ, like a 3 parts, because of that's been requested. So first of all, if anyone's got any objection to this, let us know. But because that's quite a bit of a breaking change, people will have to replace, when they do import DSC resource in the DSC configuration, then it's a good opportunity to bundle in to some extent some of the breaking changes, and changing the version to 3 parts would be a great thing. We want to make sure, obviously, that when we do find module, you still find the latest ones. But otherwise, if we do that during a major update, that will work. And we'll talk about the other resources to be released, and we'll ask if there's any breaking change. Johan, is it fixed?
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Yeah, sorry about that. My headset stopped working, so I had to reconnect. So we have a few resources to be released here. Active Directory. Do we have? Can you put up the list, maybe the agenda?
Yeah, I think you got control, but I can try. There we go.
Okay. Active Directory CS/DSC. Okay, sorry. Active Directory CS/DSC is going to have eventually have breaking changes. Danny is going to talk about it later, I think. Computer Management DSC is going to be released. DFS DSC. I think we should release that because it has it will publish the examples. Yeah, but the only change in that is the examples is going to get published. That didn't work the last time. Office Online Server DSC. I have a question mark on that because not sure if there are changes. We have to reach out to Nick about that, I think. Security Policy DSC, SQL Server DSC, and we have Active Directory DSC that has been renamed from Active Directory. It also contains, on top of that breaking change, it also have other breaking changes. Trying to get as much of breaking change in that release as possible now. We have Storage DSC, XBitLocker, XDNS Server, XPS Desired State Configuration, XSCSMA, XWeb Administration, and lastly SharePoint that I'm not sure if it's gonna get released. I have to reach out to Yurik. There are no pending PR to be released yet on that repo. So
okay, so if there's any change on this one, or if there's change to other resources by next Wednesday, or let's say next Tuesday, then they will be released anyway.
Yeah, we have to keep track of any. If there are more modules that get PRs merged, we're gonna release them too.
Yes. So is there
keep track of them.
Is there breaking changes that people need to be aware of?
We have a bunch of breaking changes. Yeah, I didn't look at breaking changes in the other modules. I only know in Active Directory DSC.
Yeah, that's quite a big. Maybe Danielle knows some of those.
Yeah, there's none that I know of. The possible one is Active Directory DSC, which we'll talk about. That's whether we move that one to PowerShell 5 support only. If we decide to do that, then a breaking change will go in, but I don't know if it'll go in before next week. I've got to get that PR finished up.
Okay, so maybe we should discuss this. So last time we talked about not supporting WMF4. We say like everyone was kind of happy with it. So let's just ask again. There's a bit more people maybe today. So does anyone? So obviously up until now, and then the version up until now still works with WMF4, right? But should we stop for this kind of resource like Active Directory CS/DSC? Should we stop supporting WMF4 on only supporting DSC on WMF5? Has anyone any objection? You can just unmute and join the call if you have anything to say, or try to chat on the window, but I don't have access to the window, so someone else will have to read it for me.
You got Daniel Both said he's fine to drop WMF4.
Yeah, completely.
Yes, I knew that from you. Okay, so then I think for from any resource perspective, I would say that will be up to the maintainer if they want to drop it. The good thing to do is obviously warn the users and making sure that when you release a new version, you've updated the module manifest, for instance. But other than that, I think, yes. So if I guess you're the maintainer for that one, Daniel.
Well, yeah, I'm the maintainer for Active Directory DSC.
So yeah, so I don't think there's any objections. So feel free to do so.
Yeah,
No.
older versions will of course still work fine with WMF4. It's just going to be the new resource I add in will be WMF5 only, and therefore I'll make the manifest WMF5 only.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with that.
And that will be a breaking change.
Yeah.
And regarding a point around the version numbering as well, we removed the 4th digit. I think it's still semver, but it's semver without the 4th digit. So still major minor patch.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Cool.
So go back to the breaking changes for Active Directory DSC. So we finally got the repo renamed, removed the X from all resources and all from the module name. It's awesome work by a lot of maintainers here. So I just want to give a shout out to some of the maintainers, some of the contributors who helped us rename this repo. I'm very grateful for this. Simon Heather, Robert Gauche, I think, Kung Fu 71186. I don't know the name of that person, but
he will recognize himself.
yeah. Daniel Scott Rensford fixed a lot of comment-based help, and finally Chris Gardner, who actually did the rename repo, the rename pull request.
Great.
And I just tweet chat here. I'm not used to Teams, so it takes a bit. Just want to send out that there. And also, we had also in Active Directory DSC, we had a contributor that actually fixed the oldest issue, or supporting read-only domain controllers. It was awesome work. And I don't know his name or her name. His name is Svillen. But a big shout out to him too. He's there to fixing that issue. So the oldest issue fixed.
That's great news. So that's a really good step forward, and thank you again, everyone, for contributing and keep up the good work. I was just checking the chat, so back into the slides. There's not much slide, just for us to just keep on track and on deliver the things. So the community logo. So maybe Daniel, you can sum up what happened and what's been chosen.
Yeah, so we thought it was a good idea to build a bit of an identity and get together a logo representing the community. So we put a bit of a poll out on GitHub with some ideas and some options, and it was overwhelmingly the community has voted for this logo. So great job, and I think it really does. It sets us up well to build that community. I think it looks fantastic. So we were going to take the top 3, but and sort of go do another vote on those, but it actually this one was so strong. Everyone was so strongly in favour of this one that we thought, well, let's just grab it and go. So yeah. Awesome.
So just a bit of clarification there. So this is not an official logo from Microsoft. This is like a logo that comes from the community, and that means there's no trademark on this. You can use it. There should not be any issue. Obviously, please be nice. This is your logo. But that means we can print and we can use it in our blogs and stuff. That should be fine. And thank you. So and that was voted by the community. That doesn't mean we have to stick with it forever, but at least for now we have one because we didn't have one before. And okay, so that's something else, that the DSC Community GitHub organization. So that's one of the biggest and a bit more deep kind of change happening now. So the DSC Resource Kit has been going on for actually a long time. writing some documentation. The DSC Resource Kit, I think, started in 2013, actually been released the 26th of December, the wave 1 of the kit, the 26th of December 2013. And that's really changed quite a bit. So I'm not too sure if it was on GitHub initially. It might have been, but then it was not released to the PowerShell Gallery because it didn't exist at that time. And we've come a long way, and the community started contributing heavily, as you've seen just before. And we reached to the point where the community was delivering a lot of changes, and it was harder and harder for the DSC team, and especially Katie in this call, to manage all of this and to spend the time. And that's why at some point we had this scalability issue, and the DSC Resource Kit could not accept a new module. So it was decided that only the new modules would only be listed to the community, and it would still be owned and released by their owners. So it was just to help with discoverability, and we still had issues when for the permissions. So because, as you know, the DSC Resource Kit is part of the PowerShell organization in GitHub, so everything is under PowerShell. That means it needs to respect and to the permission model that is for the Microsoft open source code, and then managed by, to some extent, the PowerShell and the DSC team. And that means there's no external members that can have organization-wide permissions. And the way we looked very closely at the way how GitHub managed permissions within organization, and that means we didn't have much flexibility to do so. So we contacted some maintainers and the people have been maintaining, and we asked, okay, what's the way forward? We want to remove, we want to not be in the way. We want the DSC team to help, but not be in the way when there's a change that needs to happen, creating a new DSC repository, or approving some changes, or changing permissions on the repository. So how can we make this happen? And we found out that the only way forward we could see to make it more scalable for everyone was to separate and create a new organization only for the DSC community that would not be managed by Microsoft. It would not be. It would not have to be only have Microsoft employees as part of this GitHub organization, so that we could distribute and share the load of managing the DSC resources and the resource kit across more people than just KT and some people in the DSC team. So that's why we came up. We said, okay, we need to have a new DSC community, and the community will own this organization. So that means we've been able to start this DSC community, and the idea will be to transfer the DSC resources to that new GitHub organization. And that means it will be easier to give more permissions to the maintainers on their repositories, or to some people, a limited number of people, let's say, on the DSC community GitHub organization. And that will be what we call the DSC Community Committee that we'll discuss in a bit. So the idea will be to transfer the repositories, pretty much all of the repositories, maybe except one, which will still be under the DSC team because they have to actively support it for their customers. But everything else would just be a transfer, like for like, from the PowerShell organization, to the DSC community organization. So let me just jump on the chat to make sure I'm not missing any questions for that one. Yes, that was script center, actually. Bartek is right, always. And so I can't see any questions. Feel free to just interrupt if you have questions or other things.
There was a question around the MIT license.
I think that was for the logo.
Oh.
And yes, we'll put it on the website. On the repository, actually, in the DSC community organization. We'll share it, and we'll share the AI file and the SVG, so then anyone can just take it and print it, for instance, for the next conference. So that's the idea, creating a new DSC community GitHub organization. And at the moment, there's almost nothing. There's the DSC community GitHub.io on the .org, and I will explain that in a bit. But the idea will be to transfer everything to this one. And then all the maintainers, I think I'd already tried to invite all the maintainers of the DSC resources I know of. And then we will create teams for those maintainers, so then they can manage more easily the people helping out on their repository. So they would have a bit more independence. And then we will work in changing, but we will discuss this. Nothing is set in stone yet. We just want to transfer as well the ownership of the package within the DSC, within the PowerShell gallery. But we want to make sure we maintain the quality, the security of this, and that's why we want to make sure we have a system which is secure and that we can trust, and everyone can trust. So we will be very transparent about it, but we will not give the keys of the kingdom to everyone, obviously. So the committee, let me just making sure you see everything. So the committee is people you already know. So you've heard of Katie, you obviously know, or you've heard of Katie, as in you've heard Katie every time. She's been organizing the community calls for a very long time. I don't even know for how many years. And Michael is the program manager for Azure Guest Config. And you've heard Daniel. Daniel's been one of the top contributors, probably with Johan, like the two top contributors. And there's many other people, but we wanted to have like a small team being the committee, so then it's easier to trust, first of all, and then decisions don't take too long. But the role of the committee is making sure we're not doing stupid things, first of all. We can also share the permissions, whether it's within the GitHub DSC community organization or it's the DSC community Twitter account and website creating content, but everyone can contribute. So everything we have, maybe except Twitter, is on GitHub. So it's open and it's transparent. Everyone can see this. And we mostly talk in the PowerShell team, in PowerShell Slack team or Discord, if you want to use Discord. And there's the DSC channel, and usually at least Daniel, Johan, myself, we are on there. And I know you can tag Michael, and sometimes we will see it, or we can talk to Michael and Katie as well. So the idea of the committee is making decisions and having some more permissions and being able to manage permissions. So it's not just on Katie to make, admin change. We need to add this person to this repository. Before it was only Katie being able to do it. So we want to make sure there's not only Microsoft being able to do this, but people from the community like Daniel and Johan. Any questions so far?
So, Gail,
yes.
What does it mean for the release process of all the DSC resources?
All right, so very good question. Thank you, Daniel. So first of all, for this week, it doesn't change anything, right? As we will start transferring the repository and we will work with the maintainers to do so, we will probably start with a tiny module that we have already control on. And that might be a module that Michael has released. So as an example, I'm thinking of update services DSC. That's one example. Or it could be another one, a tiny one that we take as a first example. And we will try to change the way we release the process from something which is released by the PowerShell team to something which is released by the DSC community. And the DSC community, obviously there will need to be a change of owners of these packages, and we will work with the PowerShell and DSC team to make sure that we transfer the ownership, and we will just release and manage it. So it won't be the PowerShell team anymore, it will be the DSC community. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
I can extend on that also.
Sure.
We want to have the release process more automated as well. So, but not in the beginning, but eventually.
Yes. So we'll talk to the maintainers of the resources, and then we're probably going to try to script or to automate most of it, and obviously people will be able to contribute to this automation. So Daniel, if you want to volunteer, feel free to volunteer to the automation of the releases.
Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome.
This is Michael. I've got a question. Is the community's preference to continue doing a monthly cadence, or would it be better to do a more fluid release with a monthly announcement?
Good question. So that's a question for everyone in the community. So feel free to chat or just unmute and talk.
I would say for the community, it's best that we, well, get rid of the monthly release cycle and just as soon as something hits master and that it gets published. I think that also helps companies that actually work with DSC to start contributing to these resources in company time, basically, because then we get value out of the resource right away instead of having to wait 6 months, or sorry, 6 weeks.
Makes sense. So we've got...
That makes sense. Should we still do a monthly announcement of some kind, or should we just keep something akin to like a release page?
I would feel a release page would be fine.
We could probably even have like some automation that publishes the page and then publishes to Twitter in like a very predictable way. That's something we could table for investigation.
That'd be great.
We can't tell you about that. Still in his rocket.
Still in the rocket. Yeah, I think I do like having those posts and notifications, especially sharing those out with other business people in my organization around what's just been released. That is a nice way of getting them across this.
Yeah, we can do this easily with the website, which is probably one of the next point we're going to discuss anyway. But
can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, so the one thing I wanted to point out is that as far as I know, the Puppet guys are actually using resource kits releases as a base for their DSC module. So maybe for that purpose, it would be nice to keep at least some kind of global resource kit versioning or something like that, for them to make it easier to kind of convert it into their DSC module.
So would be like a bundle, something like a meta package.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I'm not sure how they do that at the moment, but I believe that they're using this DSC resource kit releases to kind of mimic that and then put that in the Puppet cookbooks. Sorry, not cookbooks. Whatever they have module.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely we'll keep an eye on this one. Thank you for volunteering about it. All right. So there's some people talking on the chat.
Yeah, exactly. More frequent releases are good, fluid, more frequently. So, yeah, I agree with that. And Andreas Kruger, it would be great if there would be a difference between fixed and breaking changes. What did you mean by that?
Difference between fixed. Okay.
So I'm just unmuting myself. I was thinking about the moment we do more frequent releases, this could lead to some problems with customers who don't expect so much releases. And in case it's just a fix, it would be great if that fix is available instantly. But if there's a breaking change, it would be better to have a fixed date or something like that in place when the breaking changes will be released so that you can plan for it.
Okay, so there's two sides to it. So I think if we can get closer to like a Semver model, maybe using something like Git version, that would be better, because then we will see what changes do what. Like it would have a meaning, which is what cementing versioning is about. Yes, exactly. It doesn't Semver handle this. That's the point of Semver. So if we start using something like Git versions, which would help us doing this, that would be a great thing. So we're happy with the idea, I would say. The only problem would be to implement this in the automation. So yes, on the idea, we just need to make it happen. The other thing though is if you like, you can't really have a long time services kind of branch as you have on other products, because it's only community maintained. So if there's a fix, it will just go on the main branch, right? Then whether you want it or not, that would be up to you. So I just wanted to point that downside. But otherwise, on the principle, yes, if we have more meaningful releases, maybe easier to access using Semver, that'd be great. So we'll try to make it happen when we automate the release process. Hopefully that answered the questions.
Yes, thank you.
Sweet. So nothing else. All right, let's jump. Any other question while we're at it? Or back to the slides? There's only a few more slides. All right. Yeah, so just a summary. So the DSC Community Committee is there to share permissions across GitHub organization, also ownership for the PS Gary packages, trying to improve the communication. So we want to have a small group so it's easier to communicate within the small group, and at the same time having more people that you can interface with, so then not all communications going to the same person. Like as an example, not everyone going to Michael or to Katie for some information. Like we can pull to the group of the committee, and then people can just try to reach out or answer you directly. We want to make group decisions without blocking. That means if one of the committee members is not there, we trust each other, and most of the decisions can happen without everyone being there. So the default would be to accept, like after 72 hours, if there's no objections. So if someone doesn't respond, it doesn't matter. It can still go ahead and we can still move forward. Yes, as I said, spread the people investing with the community. For the website, oh yeah, that's the other thing, but I'll discuss that in a minute. So that's another big news. There's an Invoke DSC Resource RFC coming for PowerShell 7. So we started, I've been asked to start working on this by the PowerShell team and the DSC team. And the idea is to provide an Invoke DSC resource for PowerShell 7, but without, first of all, being cross-platform is one of the bigger points, and not going through the LCM. That means being able to use the DSC resource in your script without having to, without the requirement to have permissions to SIM or WMI for executing your resources. So there's an RFC open. Please go and comment. I already have a comment on a few things that I need to add and clarify, because I discussed with Joel Jekyll yesterday, and I need to change my mind of how to handle some of the things. So I need to edit that. But if you have more comments, I know Kevin Marquette actually commented earlier today. So feel free to jump in, upvote, put your thumbs up, and if you have any questions right now, feel free to ask. But otherwise, I invite you to go and read the RFC. Yes. So just if you the Invoke DSC resource would just look at the PowerShell resource. It would not support binary modules for now, and probably not other type of resources like a Python resource, for example, would not be supported, at least not during the MVP. But that means anyone can, in their script, instead of having to write all the imperative works, they would just be able to leverage and pass the parameter to the DSC resource to just simplify the way they can configure their systems. And you would have to handle probably the credential that you're running this at. But that means, yes, that makes it more Ansible-like. Yes and no. There's a lot of things about Ansible, but that would enable more scenarios, and that would help third parties and vendors that we actually discussed a lot with for making this RFC to integrate better with the DSC resources. So we talked with Chef, Puppet, and some others to say, hey, what do you think about this? And I believe they're on board. I believe they like it, like some of you do. All right, try to catch up with the chats, all right? So does this mean you can skip the compile step? that is, not talking about the compiled state. This is only you want to use one resource. The same, very similar way of what you're doing in WMF 5.1 when you do invoke DSC resource. That would only work with the DSC resource, not with the configuration scripts or composite resource for now, at least. But that means you can just invoke the resource in your current scripts, and without the need again of going through SIM and having permissions to do so, which usually needs you to have elevated permissions because it runs a system. Yes, it will help Ansible. Right, I will move on. If you have any questions, feel free to in the chat. Yeah.
I was just going to point out that this will be implemented in PowerShell Core 7, which is cross-platform, which opens the door for us being able to write DSC resources for Linux in PowerShell without doing like a composite on top of NX script and things like that. And this is an area that I've been hoping would eventually happen. So I'm really happy to see that.
Yeah. So I think that that enables a lot of options for the DSC community. If you think about the ecosystem, you can use it in many other ways. Yeah, Mac too, exactly. As Ryan said, you can create your resources for Mac too. It's kind of brilliant. So yes, go there, at least put a thumbs up, talk to your friends, talk to everyone. This is we need to avoid this, and we want to see the community interested and supporting this RFC. So I already talked a bit about transferring the repositories on the PS gallery. At the moment, you can see them in the DSC resource of the PowerShell organization. So we will have to, over time, and we'll try to do the most active first, probably. And hopefully within the next 6 weeks, we will have some ported into a new way. And we really want all of you to contribute and help us making sure we're doing things the right way and a secure way as well to ensure the quality that we have and making sure we're not making things work. We want to make it better, obviously. And we can't do it alone as well, because there's about 55 modules or repositories, I think, active now, something like this. So that's a lot of work. So we'll work on it, but we need all of you to help us, and we will help you. I wanted to add something, and I forgot what it was. I think Daniel or Johan, you were meant to remind me of something, and I can't remember what it was. I'll rely on you guys.
Yeah, let me.
No, okay. If I miss something.
No, it's just the WMF5 thing was just the only thing I had.
Okay. All right, never mind. Let's move on. Yeah. Oh, no, so I remember now. If you look actually at the pull request, there's 4 pull requests on these repositories. And those 4 pull requests were because people wanted to submit more modules. So as I said earlier, we stopped accepting new resources, new resource module in the DSC resource and DSC resource kit. But by changing the way we work and creating this DSC community, and if we change the way we release, so it's more automated and less work, then we can actually accept more people. So I think one of the pull requests is about Office. I can't remember the exact name. Is it SharePoint? No, Office. All right.
Yeah,
I'll get back.
Yeah, I think it's 4 or something.
Yeah.
Let me check. I'm there still. We have Office 365 DSC, JAA DSC, and Group Policy DSC, and Update Service DSC.
Yes. So I don't know if Chris Garner is on the call, but Chris Garner wrote GEA DSC, and I think it's pretty much HQRM or close to HQRM, and that's a possibility for us to deprecate XGEA and then use GEA DSC instead. And that would be pretty much like for like, but with more features and more support as well from Chris on this resource module. And then the others, I think one is from Nick Charlebois, and we could migrate that one as well under the DSC community. That's just a suggestion, and obviously that would be up to the maintainers to decide. The DSC community website. So we were changing the way the DSC community is organized, and we wanted to have something maybe a bit more of a portal. Then we can create some content, something that doesn't have to be published every time by, let's say, Michael or someone in the DSC team. So we wanted to have something a bit more freedom, maybe, or especially just community contribution that would be very easy to do. And this is it's a static website. It's a Hugo template if you're familiar with it. So you just write your MD file like you write any documentation, and you can just submit it to to the repository. And then when we accept it and merge it, it goes directly to the dsccommunity.org website. So we want to enable you to blog and to document as well, but also making it more accessible to find information like the guidelines. So then it can be referenced by search engine as an example, and then it's easier for you to find out some content. And this is where from now on we will try to put the community calls agenda, and then all the documentations we have, and we have references on the resource module as an example to see what's going on, and we'll try to improve it. This is just static website. It's not, you can look at the code. It's not very complex, but it does the job for now. It's not beautiful because I'm really bad at designs, but obviously we make it your own. If you want to submit changes to it, whether it's just design or it's content, feel free to do it. And if you have questions or if you see questions, feel free to say, hey, I know the answer to that one, and I will add it to the FAQ, or I will add a blog post to it that everyone can find it. Or maybe you can just want to, I don't know, you wrote a blog series on some things related to DSC. Maybe you can just do a quick summary from here and link back to your post if someone wants to have more information to it. So go on the Slack channel and discuss with us. Say, hey, I've got this content. I'd like to do something like this. And then we can help you making sure you're doing the right thing, and then contribute to the website. There's already some content, things that explains what I've tried to summarize right now about how we came to this point, what is the community, what is the GitHub organization, and the DSC Community Committee. So if something is missing, obviously let us know, but hopefully we find some content useful over there, and obviously share it. And so as we add,
and as I said, feel free to contribute both to the website design, blogs, articles, questions, and anything. We accept all of it.
Yeah, as an example, if you say, hey, this is how you use DSC with Ansible, feel free to add a post in there so then people know how they can do it. Or if you want to say, hey, this is how you can use DSC with Packer, then feel free to add it there. And so last but not least on this page, the Twitter account. So to make sure it's easier for people to find the information, we will start to use that Twitter account, the DSC Community Twitter account. Please follow it, and then we will announce, as we did today, a reminder to say, hey, we're going to have the DSC Community Call, and this is the link, or we publish new content and things like this. Let me just double check the chat. Thanks, Ryan. He said it's a decent site. He knows my skills.
It's a question from Ryan, a bit up. Third, what does this mean for Microsoft PowerShell DSC for Linux going forward? Is there anyone, Michael or Kate, anything? I don't know anything about that. So,
Michael, you want to take on that one?
For DSC for Linux?
So, yeah, the question is, what does this mean for DSC for Linux?
Right. Mostly, actually, we could talk about the guest configuration audit.
Yes.
Well, even that today is for Windows, but we're leaving the door open for Linux. But I'll explain the short term, long term. So short term, obviously, we've got invoke-DSC resource as an RFC. So that will kind of get the motor running, and we can start building resources and PowerShell for Linux. And then we have the new platform guest configuration in Azure. We have information coming very soon about our plans for how that will be used as an Azure service outside of Azure. So the big announcement we have coming, and I'm happy to talk about it today. The blog post isn't live yet. Is we are now public preview for guest configuration, where you can start using configurations that you wrote yourself. We're calling it custom content, which means you can create a guest configuration package to audit what's happening inside VMs. For DSC, that will primarily be for Windows. We're still using inspec for Chef, but we are investigating how we can flatten that out and actually make it easier both for Windows and for Linux, where even for Linux today, DSC is running everything under the hood. It's just executing Chef inspec and then consuming the results. What we ultimately want to do is to say on that platform, you can use whatever tooling is right for you. And if DSC is the right language for you, great. In fact, that should be sort of like the native language that, that is sort of there by default. But then any tool that you want to use, you can just plug in. So it'll be a little bit of time before we're able to deliver that for Linux, but it is something that I'm pretty ambitious about. And I'll keep giving updates for guest config as we get closer and closer to making more announcements later this semester.
So the question.
It's a very long answer for a short question. Sorry.
Yeah. So Bartek tried to precisely says the question was more about the old OMI based DSC for Linux, and they say I would guess it's official funeral for that one.
Yeah, the only pattern that really works for DSC for Linux on the old platform, where you're running it in PowerShell, and this isn't even documented, this is just something that's sort of been socialized, is where you write everything in NX script and you shebang to PowerShell Core at the top of each function, and then you wrap that in a composite. So it's not just accepting random input from your configuration. And so that model does work. It's definitely not perfect. I mean, DSC for Linux really just needs to be rebooted, in my opinion. So I'm kind of anxious to get there through the new platform. But having invoke-DSC for Linux is a huge step forward in this area, because that sidesteps the OMI issue completely.
Yep. Let me just check. Oh yeah. We already said it, so I just wanted to get back to this. Make it your own. So please carry on contributing, or do contribute to the resources on the community if you need help. We are again on the Slack channel. If you look at the website, if you go to contacts or help, you will find the link to the Slack or Discord if you prefer Discord. Feel free to submit content to the website. Yes, stream, like that's a new thing. So there's not enough people, and we know we don't do enough as well. But there's not enough stream going on the DSC side, DSC or configuration management side. So we should do more of those. And yes, if you think like we should do something differently, it's good to have ideas, and we do have many ideas, but feel free to volunteer to help us driving that change. And yeah, if you have any questions, we're available, and you can, and you know where to reach us anyway. That's it for the slides. So let's take questions, if any. Yeah, thank you, Johan. You put just the link there. So is there any other question anyone want to ask? Yeah. No, Bartek, that's only because it's you. So Bartek asked volunteer. Doesn't mean only all the people that unmute during the call. It's only because it was Bartek and Daniel. And so I'd like to ask, so are people excited about these changes, and do you think we're going in the right direction?
I'm generally excited, but the one concern I have is just generally the things that when things move towards community, it's always a question. Okay, how much support from Microsoft we can expect for that? Because obviously it's nice to have things going forward faster, but I don't really. I would like to be able to trust it. So if something happens and I have problems, and I have premier support online, and they are willing or able to help, something like that. I mean, that's just my line of thought sometimes. That it's always great to have community involved, but it's always good to have a stamp from Microsoft that they actually approve it and they want to keep that one supported.
Yeah, Gail, maybe I should do a blog post to the community site that just kind of, I mean, I can just kind of refer to our existing support statement around, that support gets specified in the module, and just sort of renew all of that. Now that we're making a change, it would just be a good point of reference.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because it doesn't change anything about the way things are supported or not supported, or where support comes from.
Exactly.
So we should just like make it clear by sort of restating it.
Yes, and to add to this, and to answer Bartek, one of the other problem we've seen is some people actually misunderstand, misunderstand the support, even if it was like stamped, as you said, by Microsoft. Like that doesn't mean you would have support of those, right? And this is clearly stated on the GitHub repository, but sometimes because it's published by the PowerShell team, it's misunderstood. So by changing that a bit, we hope that it clarifies the situation, but technically it doesn't change what's going on. So we're not changing anything that was actually happening, at least to this regard, but it's just not stamped anymore by Microsoft, and people will not misunderstand what the stamp means. But
yes, the resources has been community supported for like 2 years now.
Yeah. And that said, we always recommend to all the users. Let's say if you're a SQL DBA and you use DSC, you should always go back to the product team and say, hey, we love the work that's going in the community about this SQL Server DSC resource module. Like, are you involved in this? And ask them. Maybe they will help us a bit more, or maybe you can show that there's an interest from the community to help you doing your work, your DBA work or whatever, and then they will see there's actually customer demands. See if everything goes through. I would say the PowerShell team or the DSC team, then it doesn't get back to the hair of the product teams. So what Microsoft values a lot is customer feedback, and this is a good opportunity for you to use that feedback to praise the work going on for these modules that help managing their products.
And I think also this change make it possible to actually make it easier for the community to actually support the resources, to actually get the change in fast.
Yes.
Eventually, when we get the automation better, and we can improve a lot on releases and how things get fixed and so on. So I think support-wise, it's going to be better when we all can change our own tool much faster.
Yes, but I understand what people, especially I would say that traditional consumer that prefer to have the Microsoft stamp on resources. This is not where the model is, at least as far as I can see in IT in general. It tends to go with multiple providers doing multiple things. But I think it's for the better of the community. Then it's a matter of making sure, and we really want to making sure that it's as trustable and as secure as it used to be. So the more reviewer, the more people from the community making sure that when there's a pull request, it does the right thing, then the better it is and the faster we can move.
Yeah.
By the way, does it also mean that you can gonna try to involve also things outside of Microsoft products? Like I know the guys from VMware working on the DSC resources. I think the campus a while ago when mentioning that they want to work on something like for their products. So do you plan to involve that also in the DSC community? Do you envision that being like a central for anything DSC resource?
So because it's managed by the DSC community, I would say it's whatever the DSC community would like to be. That's obviously we're still within the DSC framework, but there's no reasons not to. In terms of for VMware, so you're talking about the DSCR repository they're doing for VMware, which is like an amazing job of a lot of DSC class-based resource. And if they would like to, then they could. I don't see why they would. They may have because they're vendors and they may be, I don't know, but they may be supporting, I don't know if they do, but they may be supporting their resources. Then they may have reasons not to do so, not to put them under the DSC community. But from the DSC community perspective, why not?
But we're more than happy to see them actually making blog posts and
exactly
link to their resources or modules and whatever.
I guess VMware wasn't the best example for that one, but I was just thinking in general, like anything that is using DSC for managing the whatever, but it's not necessarily Microsoft product. So yeah, obviously you're right. VMware probably won't be tempted to move in that direction, but yeah, I can envision others what might question if it's possible. So was okay. Are you guys looking forward to that, or would you accept it or not?
Would you like to see some of those?
I mean, sure. It just makes it easier to just first of all guarantee certain level of quality for those resources and kind of have the gateway for if somebody shows up to a DSC community repo, I know that it's at the level where I can trust, regardless if it's Microsoft or Camp or what have you, basically.
I think we've already got some. You think of X Firefox and things like that. Those are obviously managing third-party products. So
yeah,
I don't see why they wouldn't come into the community.
Yep. All right, we're getting close to the time. I hope that was informative, and I hope you like the changes. And if anything, let us know. Do you have anything to add?
No.
Good. Michael, if you can, I think you stopped the recording maybe already, but otherwise you can, and then we will post that recording.